Hello and welcome to the Grand Cinema Hotel, a podcast hosted by two friends who love cinema. Tonight you'll be staying in room 188, The Holdovers, the newest film by Alexander Payne. So go ahead, get comfortable, and throw on that do not disturb sign as we spend the holidays with The Holdovers.
Every year at Barton Academy, students, faculty, and staff depart the campus for a 2-week winter break. But there are always an unfortunate few who have nowhere to go for the holidays. They're known as the Holdovers.
Mr. Hunnam.
Hello, Mary.
I had you guys stuck with babysitting duty this year. How'd you manage that?
You know, he used to be a student, right? Yeah, that's why he knows how to inflict maximum pain on us.
I thought all the Nazis were hiding in Argentina.
Stifle it, Tully.
You just earned yourself a detention, sir.
Being here with you is already one big detention.
Son of a bitch, that's another detention!
What's going on, all my hormonal vulgarians, and thank you for checking back in. It's your host, Gus, and as always, I'm with my co-host, Alvaro.
What's up, guys?
The man with a movie shirt for every day of the week. I noticed when you walked in the room, you have a There Will Be Blood shirt on.
Yes, sir.
I have not seen this shirt before. Is this new?
I've had
newer?
this for like a month, actually. I think
Gatekeeping the drip, I see.
I haven't worn it in front of you, I think. You know, sometimes it's a black shirt, you know, as somebody like you also has a lot of black shirts. Sometimes I forget. Oh yeah, I do have this one over here. It blends in.
Yeah. My black t-shirts get lost all the time within each other. I'm like, where the fuck is this shirt? And then I'll start going through them one by one. I was like, damn, it's been here literally the entire time since the last time I
It was
washed
the second one there, you know.
Yeah.
But this one
There Will Be
sometimes
Blood, man, one of our favorites.
Yeah. I try to keep some of the ones that we really love or movies that I really like. I try to not wear them as much, probably because I know they're t-shirts, but I do think they're so cool that I'm
The
like
collectibles, kind of.
Yeah. But thank you for bringing it up. Yeah, this is pretty solid one. Pretty simple, right?
Yeah. Do you feel like sharing with the people, or are you going to gatekeep where this is from?
I don't know. I mean, I think the brand is actually getting bigger, but it's on Instagram, and their website is And After That. They drop a lot of different Texas. They drop a lot of movie tees, the wrestling tees. The one that I have, the Eddie Guerrero one, is from them too. I think it's I assume it's a Latin person making it. I'm not too sure though, but I do think they're getting more attention. Their shirts are a little bit, I would say, pricey, obviously, but
It's
I like
worth
the
it
quality.
to get the shirt, you know? It's like whenever they made There Will Be Blood, it's not like they made this cool merch, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's all the stuff that I know, like with you, the same way. It's like all the stuff that you wish they would. Like that's the clash of of cultures, right? You're like, I wish they made a cool shirt, or like I know they all wore something. Maybe they didn't, but Director Fits is the same way, right? So
Yes. Nice transition. I'm wearing a Director Fits tee, the Licorice Pizza one. I just think it's kind of funny that we both have the movie shirts on today.
PTA.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think usually we both do have movie shirts on, but your collection is way more insane than mine. That's why I said you have one for like every day of the week. I probably have like less than 10 right now, but how many do you think you have? Like 30, 50?
I think like 30, yeah.
Because we also saw the movie Napoleon recently, which is not what today's episode is about. But you already know that if you're looking at the title. I know you have 2 Napoleon shirts, right?
Yeah, I do, actually.
And you also liked Napoleon a lot more than I did, so I didn't realize you were a big Napoleon guy. You know, but I did a little reading between the lines, a little investigating. I was like, hold up, this motherfucker has 2 Napoleon shirts. No wonder he was getting so defensive when I fell asleep.
Yeah, so that's like another one, the synagogue, right?
Everybody was into Napoleon.
The synagogue. Also another, I would say more than just a clothing brand. I have their Stanley Kubrick poster from probably like 3 years ago. That kind of just started. All of these guys are pretty similar and aware of each other. So I think, Instagram's algorithm, although very anti-capitalist as we could be, sometimes shows you the shit that you want to see. And
it is what it is, man.
I think that's how I came into, but the ones that I'm wearing now, I think is my favorite. And after that, they do capsule drops by directors. So they've had a Wes Anderson, David Fincher, Paul Thomas Anderson. They just did Ridley Scott and the David Fincher one just passed.
For The Killer?
No, so they just do kind of older movies, I've noticed. So like in that same drop, like for example, I got a Blade Runner tee. there was an Alien one. I didn't get that. But then there was, you know how David Fincher directed the Apple commercial?
Yeah. Oh, the one with the. Wait, no, which one? Because I'm thinking of the Spike Jonze one with the
when he throws the
moving
hammer?
hallways and stuff. No, I've never seen the one you're talking
There's
about.
so I'm not sure if I've seen it.
I'm talking about the Spike Jonze one where the girl's dancing and like the walls like become like levels and.
Oh, I don't think
Do you
I've
know
seen
what I'm
that
talking
one.
about? No, that one's like the only one I've seen. Okay, so David Fincher did an
I think the one that David Fincher directed, the Apple commercial, might be the one that's famous where they throw the hammer at the screen. I'm not too sure. Anyways, that was a shirt that I got from there.
This may or may not have happened.
Yeah, but that was one of the shirts there, and there was a Fight Club shirt. I didn't really like it, but there was a Zodiac shirt. That's the one that I got.
Nice.
So it's
you have that one?
I ordered. Those are the next ones that I ordered. So it'll
Okay.
probably take like a month or something. But yeah.
Hey, well, I think it's cool too that they're unofficial merch. You know, well, some of them are right. Like I know Dumb Good back then was doing the official merch, right?
Yeah, like they
would
have
partner with the
licensing.
brand, license with them. But I think it's cool that so many people make the bootleg movie shirts. Like I'm totally for it in this case. I'm not in some other things. Like I'm not a shoe guy into buying fakes or anything like that. Or it's mostly shoes. The shoes is kind of where it crosses the line for me into being kind of weird. But I do think that the duplicate shirts, the unofficial merch, is like probably one of the cooler fashion trends that's come around in the last couple of years. And it's kind of replaced the band tee.
Yeah.
And I think it's more personal too. Because even someone who owns band shirts as well, like when I wear a Joy Division shirt, I don't feel like that's really saying anything about me because I'm like, yeah, everybody who is into this kind of music or wears all black, whatever, like can kind of put two and two together.
Sometimes like the Joy Division album or like their logo's so cool that people wear it and they don't even know what it is. Like they just kind of like the way it looks with the lines, you know?
That's true, and it's been done so many times. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is like if you see me walking down the street wearing a Joy Division shirt, I don't think you'd be surprised. I look like somebody who would listen to Joy Division. But with movies, you never know. Like when I wear my Green Knight shirt out in public, sometimes I get compliments from people who I would like not expect to, like, I don't know, not to sound weird, but like they just look so normal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, they're like, oh, cool Hereditary shirt. Like that happened to me one time when I was at Target, you know?
Exactly.
And then the guy was like, oh yeah, look, I dressed up as Alex Wolf's character. What's his name? Peter? Yeah, he showed me a costume of him where he's like taken over by Pamey's wearing the crown. He's got like the broken nose.
See, that's
and stuff.
sick.
Yeah, so that's what I like more about movie shirts is I feel like it's a more personal thing.
Yeah,
Movies feel more personal.
I do want to correct myself, I guess, on the shirt. So Ridley Scott directed, and it was the commercial that I'm thinking about. But David Fincher did also direct an Apple commercial. But
Everybody gets a bag with Apple.
Yeah, it's 1984's Ridley Scott commercial, which is the commercial I was thinking about, where the girl's running down the hall and she throws the hammer at the
it's
screen.
the one that's like 1984 inspired.
It was also in Fortnite. Was
it really?
Yes, it was as a spoof because it's that iconic of a commercial. But it's a shirt on that Ridley Scott drop. See, that's why I wasn't sure if it was a David Fincher or Ridley Scott, but in that drop, there's a Ridley Scott Apple commercial tee that I first, when I saw it, I just thought it was another Blade Runner one, but then I looked at it and I was like, oh, this is even cooler, actually. 'Cause that's what more of a commercial that a director made, you know, like you said, unofficial merch and stuff like that. But I do find that stuff too.
I need a T-shirt of Martin Scorsese's Kodak commercial where he's upset at all the pictures he took.
Exactly. See, they also had a Scorsese drop. That's where I have the shirt where it has all these movies on the back. So yeah, shout out to them. Really cool shirts and all the other ones
We
you
should start
brought
bringing
up.
this up more. The movie
Yeah.
T-shirts. I feel like it's a wormhole. I don't know how many podcasts are going down movie T-shirt wormholes, but maybe it's something we need to be on more.
Yeah.
It's also Thanksgiving today, so that's not the greatest transition, but happy Thanksgiving.
Racksgiving.
If you Opsgiving, the first Opsgiving, hosted by the Grand Cinema Hotel. We'll save that next week for Napoleon, I think. Yeah, so podcast setup's a little different today, more intimate, I would say, than usual.
True.
We used to do the table by my kitchen, and then we started doing the couch. But today we're in my room, actually, because, you know, my wife is out there cooking up for Thanksgiving. So in the room feels a little different of a vibe, kind of. We're usually not this close to the TV. We have National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation on.
Looks like IMAX to me.
Yeah, if you squint hard enough. But the vibe has been set, so let's talk about the movie that we are here because this movie fucking slaps. It's an absolute banger. Throwback to a type of movie that they used to make.
Yes, sir.
Alexander Payne's The Holdovers. Alvaro, this is your second time seeing this movie, correct?
Yes, sir.
What drove you to go so far out of your way to see this movie the first time? Because sometimes you go out of your way to see a movie, right?
That's true. Yeah, I would say that.
Yes.
The Holdovers, I think I saw the trailer for this. I don't know. It's hard to obviously dictate which one it was through. It was obviously one of the more A24 releases, or one of the smaller films that I saw the trailer for. And honestly, when I first seen it, like I was like, I really want to see that, just based off of the holiday, kind of the commercial. The trailer that I had was very old school, and the way that it looked, I already was in. It's kind of like when you saw Spencer. I'm like, I want to see that.
Yeah.
Then I went to go read about Alexander Payne a little bit more, and kind of the movies that he'd released. I'd never seen any of them, but the kind of subject matter that he tackled and the way that he was going about it kind of reminded me of the same way of, like, who's the director of Banshees?
Oh God, Martin McDonagh. Okay, good.
Yeah, so like his kind of movies,
Yeah.
like where it's they're fun, but they also do address themes in a very, I would say,
Personal tragedies.
yeah, and they end up, it's kind of Wes Anderson a little bit.
I was gonna say the same thing. It's obviously it's not the same stylistically, but just movies about people and their like interpersonal dramas and how they come together usually to form some kind of small found family or a circle of people who like understand each other because they're all going through something different that's still the same. Like in this movie, it's loss. Everybody's dealing with like some kind of loss.
Exactly.
Anyways, go ahead.
No, but yeah, you know what I mean, and I do think that is this is gonna go up in a little bit of a tangent, but like, when you break down your letterbox movies, like what is your favorite? Like I like to go on here. We said sci-fi and horror, but every time I look at my stats, it's dramas and like and I'm like,
stories.
Huh? Yeah, like to me, I'm like, I think I end up being like that is the most touching to me because it's real, right? And so I do find myself not really thinking how much I like these stories, and then so I just got more excited for it, and once it did come out, I went to go watch it, and I mean it's just anything better than I could have expected. I'm not going to say like I know any of Paul Giamatti's characters from before. Obviously, when I told you, I was like, is that the guy with the Amanda Bynes movie? Like, you know what I mean?
Big
Like,
fat liar. This is your frame of reference for this man, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And it's not that I have any negative or positive opinion. I just did it. Like, I don't know. So I love going into movies like that because I think to go in a clean slate like that, I do feel like I can judge them properly without knowing like, oh, this person, people don't really like him or whatever. And for this movie, I just really walked out like with the new classic. I felt like in my terms of how I felt like I want to rewatch this movie every year around the holidays, and we'll get into more of that. But I think what really made me get out of the way was just the culmination of me being so interested in it after seeing the trailer. Like the trailer got me,
Mm-hmm. You probably have seen him in more than you would realize because he's in, and I brought this up because I wanted to kind of have a frame of reference myself because I'm very familiar with Paul Giamatti, but none of his movies I would say are my favorite movies.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that's a new one. Like this is a new one, where I'm like, okay, this is my Paul Giamatti movie or whatever. And like maybe people have other ones, but it's like he's in The Truman Show, Saving Private Ryan. You probably remember that he's Rhino in Spider-Man 2, right? He's wearing the big mech suit, right? It's only like a mid-credit scene at the end. He was supposed to be the villain in the third one with Andrew Garfield, but never came to fruition. Straight Outta Compton. See, so you have seen that movie. I know you have. Hangover Part 2, Donnie Brasco, Sideways. That's the one I really remember him from because that's a movie my parents liked watching when I was younger.
Sideways is Pain too.
That's the only other Alexander Payne movie I've ever seen. But I saw it at such a young time in my life that I was 10 years old when that movie came out. So it was one where I would come in and come out of the room. I'd be like, oh, okay, what is this? It's kind of boring. It's a movie in wine country, people talking. As an adult, I'm sure I would love it, but as a kid, I was like, okay, get me out of here. I'm going to go watch Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, because I think that's like one of their 4 collaborations, with this being the 4th or 3rd, something
this
like
is
that.
The second one, actually.
Oh, second?
It is only the second one, yeah.
Okay.
Lady in the Water, Big Mama's House, Big Fat Liar.
Big Fat Liar,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm sure that you have a little more frame of reference than you would think, but it's probably like I said that it's just not your. None of those movies are your favorite movies, you know, so they're not ones that stand out.
Exactly.
Also, the orangutan in Planet of the Apes. That's one for me where I'm like, what the fuck? Like, it was one of the most gonzo, weird. Mike Myers doing the Cat in the Hat before he did it, you know. I was like, Giamatti's the blueprint. You know?
At least with the Cat in the Hat, it calls for that. The material calls for the absurdism.
That Planet of the Apes movie is nightmare fuel, bro. Like, if you ever do decide to do shrooms or anything like that, you should watch Planet of the Apes, the Tim Burton one, because it might scare you off and you'll never do it again. But this movie, The Holdovers, is wonderful, right? And it's Giamatti firing on all cylinders. He's really just like hamming it up, eating up every scene. The dialogue is insane. He's just playing this pretentious, uppity, lonely, alcoholic, not a professor, a teacher at this academy. Heavy Rushmore vibes, heavy Dead Poets Society. What's the one with Matt Damon and Robin Williams? Good Will Hunting. Yeah. So, the one I really connected with because it's that type of movie that I like because it's really out there as well as Scent of a Woman with Al Pacino.
Oh yeah. You brought that up.
Yeah, that's the Hoo-Ah movie. So this is a type of subgenre of drama comedy that I do like.
And for us, like just to recently tap in the other episode, Rushmore.
Yeah, exactly. This is once I heard about this movie, I was just like in already. I was like, okay, cool. I always like the boarding school setting. I think it calls for a lot of really interesting set design details and style choices and like how they can make these schools look like no school you've ever seen before. You know what I mean? Like even within movies, I saw for this one, they used 5 different schools to make the one school. And, I was like, what is this like New England Hogwarts? For rich kids, yeah. But yeah, I really did love this movie. We can get into it a little more, obviously. I saw it with you a few days ago. Busy week at the movies. Saw 4 recently. This is the best one. It's definitely jumped into my top 10. Who knows by the end of next month? But this is a really, really good movie. I highly recommend this.
I will say the one interesting aspect I wanted to bring up on the podcast about this is it's a larger discussion of things that has to do with David Finch has been talking about it a lot, but like as a director, when you put something out, what you want the audience to take of it and what the audience actually takes from it, and whether you should get mad at that or kind of, be like, hey, maybe your material wasn't what you thought it was, and is that okay? Is that not okay? And I bring that up because Alexander Payne is like he says doesn't understand how people are calling this a Christmas classic, and
I saw that he was mad that people were calling it cozy.
Yeah, cozy, like exactly like and
anti-cozy boy Alexander Payne
every time and I understand like what the movie is about. It does have a very more of a, I would say it is sadder than it is.
It's got the melancholy.
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like people that are saying that it's cozy are very aware of that. But there is this movie that is very sad and similar to what you said, kind of like Eternal Sun. What is it? Eternal Sunshine? Eternal
Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, the Jim Carrey movie.
Yeah, so it's like it's the same type of movie where the sadness is so deep at points that when there is happiness, it almost is redeeming itself in the own movie. So like the parts where everything is really good and they work everything out are very cozy.
I think there's a good amount of people out there that would say that there is a coziness about sadness. Because like you do curl up and hide from the world, and if you're in your bed for 3 days straight, whatever, like those are horrible vibes, but there is something cozy about it,
Especially
when the room starts to smell like you and you've been watching 4 movies and, whatever. Especially, I don't want to paint too disgusting of a picture.
Yeah, exactly.
I think you get what I'm saying, right?
But especially when, like in this movie, you're doing it with other people, right?
Yeah.
And your whole longing is because you're not with other people. So there is the coziness in this that are together in misery. And I probably understand his aspect, be like, but you got like, there's nothing cozy about being these characters. Yeah, of course not. But there is realism to it, and all of these things that are happening to them aren't really in their control. And so like a lot of the people that are in these situations do not let these things really limit them, but they become very real when they're thrown in front of you. With, when you were two other people who also have traumas, you're like, it's okay to be traumatized, and like there's comfort in that. And so it's just interesting to me because with the David Fincher, the Fight Club thing, he was kind of saying like, what am I supposed to do if they take Fight Club literally?
Yeah, exactly.
But they're also like, at the end of the day, there's the people who don't take it literally, love it just as much. Yeah,
most people watched Fight Club and were just like, that was a cool movie.
Exactly. It's not like, oh, he's like, that was obviously that and The Matrix were the first movies I think where people, because of the internet, like, he's literally me, but it's like, that's not the majority, I feel like. And
yeah, those are widespread misunderstood movies, like deeply.
Yeah.
Like the people who like these movies are the people who these movies are about, which is funny.
Yeah. And so like, it's similar here, and obviously not as an intense type of situation, but I did find it interesting that Alexander Payne was kind of, it's like, why are you guys calling it cozy or warm? And it's like, well,
it is,
I do. Yeah. Like I just like, we'll get into it more. He can be
as mad as he wants about it. It's true. It is a cozy movie.
Yeah. But like, I absolutely love, and, kind of going back to we were talking about the dramas.
Does he make it seem like that's a worse thing? I don't understand, And art is meant to be subjective and understood in different ways. If your movie is understood in one solid direction, I think a lot of people would be like, well, it's way too heavy-handed. It's way too,
Correct.
Whatever this.
Yeah.
It's too on the nose. Yes. Some writers use subtext. Those writers are cowards,
And obviously towards the end, I kind of will talk more if, get into spoilers. I just don't want to get to the ending already. But, like, I understand why he's like, that's what you took from the end of it. But, like, no, I took the ending you wanted me to take. But it's like throughout the whole movie, it is warm and cozy, and I think a big proponent of that, and that we could step into that direction, is the cinematography, right? I mean, it's
insane.
It's probably one of our favorite type of looks of films, and
you dropped a bomb on me that this movie was not shot on film.
Yeah, it was actually, that's what I was making sure before I got on the episode. I wanted to get the
okay.
And yeah, it's not. It's shot digitally on an Aria Mini, which is just a regular camera, but all they did was create kind of like a filter, and similar to me when I like to do with my shots, they just changed a lot of the highlights to gold, and that really gives it that look. Like whites turn a little bit more warmer. You give that an overall thing. They basically made like a layer similar. What I wanted to double check was if they do the thing they did with the Batman, right? Remember they shot it digitally,
put it on 35 and then digitized it again.
I wanted to see but no, he's just kind of more of a filter.
Copy of a copy.
But even as so, because that prompted us to a discussion. If that's the case, how come it looks so good, right? Because sometimes even in pictures, people kind of edit them to look like film, but you can always kind of tell. But for this one, it did really feel like it was shot on film.
Yeah, I mean,
it looked authentic.
Not to compare myself to this in any way, shape, or form, but I shoot a lot of digital photography and make it look like film as much as I don't want it to. I'm not trying to make it look like film to fool people, but I'm trying to invoke the same feeling that film has.
Yeah.
So like warmness, some grain, kind of a lot of texture. I'll take that over like a crystal clear flat image that a digital camera produces, and noise. I would rather add grain than have noise. That's like unforgivable. That's the unforgivable thing about digital, right?
Noise, yeah.
Is the noise. But when we were, I think it's when we were walking out of the movie, I brought it up to you, the thing about film, or I don't know if it was before or after, but I couldn't believe it. I was like, why are more people not doing this? Because one of my personal gripes with movies that are set in a time period, it feels weird to say that about the 70s because it's not like it's so long ago, but it is 50 years ago at this point. Make it look like the time, like go all in on it. I hate watching a movie that is clean looking when it's about the 70s or the 80s. Like that bugs me so much. It takes me completely out of it. It's just people wearing costumes. It's people with veneers and fake white teeth, and they're supposed to be these like cigarette smoking, cocaine snorting, grimy ass people from the 80s or whatever, for pipe smoking alcoholics from the 70s who smell like fish. And I hate when it doesn't look like that. Like that takes me out of it so much. I know I guess it's a small thing, but I don't know. I love a good style and aesthetic, and that's just something that really, really takes me out of movies is when they don't look like the time period that they're supposed to be in.
Yeah, and the cinematographer for this, I think his name is Eigel Brild, I think is the way
We tried.
Yeah, sorry if I said that wrong. But I mean, they had an idea of what they wanted this movie to look like, and a lot of the reference was, I've never seen any of his movies, or I don't know any of it. Hal Ashby, a lot of his movies are the reference.
He's a very talked about director. He's like our favorite director's favorite director,
And so then they said that they started getting into discussion that, I found this very interesting actually, is that there is this whole thought like of people right now wanting to shoot stuff to look like, in photography and in film, to make it look like is from the 70s or from the 60s. But you're saying but the people back then actually were trying to not get grain.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you actually go and look back at Ashby's, is they're using certain lenses that is reducing the amount of grain and giving you details. He's like, so a lot of the people are rushing now to get those old lenses to make that look. He's like, but they're not in focus, or they have their downfalls. The directors then that's why they weren't using them anymore.
Yeah.
And the people are kind of just forgetting that over what you're talking about. Like, I just want that grain, And so they had those as reference, and then they knew, okay, so let's go try to get these 35 millimeter 70s that they use. And they just kept finding like this isn't going to work. It doesn't actually look like what a 1970s Hal Ashby's movie is going to look like. And so they're like, all right, let's just shoot it in digital instead, and then we'll make it look like that later. And I mean, who knows how long making it look that way took, but I do think they hit it on the nail, honestly, just because there's very few films that just really made me feel like not only is this set in the 1970s, it's like they went back there, took that film from it was never produced, and then now we're going to drop it right now.
Yeah, Alexander Payne was saying that the setting of the location and the setting of the school and stuff like that, they were set in New England. And the funny thing too is like one of the schools they shot in was a school that Paul Giamatti went to.
Oh yeah.
And he didn't remember that at first, and then he's like, I got all these horrible flashbacks when I was there. He's like, New England is a town and a city that doesn't move forward very fast. So a lot of progress has not still been made. So like this town looks like that. And that's why it was so easy to
He's like, sick.
Go back and find a place that was like real, like pretty authentic. I know they're going to do some set design and costume designing and all of that, right, to really sell it. But it really, really sells the movie. Like it just feels, like you said, like you went back to the 70s and unearthed a movie, not that you were making one to look like a 70s movie.
I think also the other thing, I just find this kind of funny, is that our three main, characters here, they all look like they're from the 1970s.
Yeah, they're all people who look like they don't make people that look like that anymore.
Yeah.
Which is like, that's another one of my pet peeves is like when you get somebody who like, I don't know, let's say Dakota Johnson or whatever, right? In Bad Times at the El Royale. She doesn't look like somebody that existed in the 70s.
No way, bro. She's too well, like
She's
you
too
said,
hot, yeah.
too well polished, knowing that
iPad face.
she takes a bath every day. Her skin is too nice.
Exactly. Yeah. I hate that about movies. But like this kid too, what's his name? Dominic Sessa. I don't know if this is his first movie or not.
It is.
I saw some stuff on Twitter beforehand, and I wasn't sure if this was even the movie that people were talking about. But yeah, he's sensational, and he does look like some kid that they just pulled out of the 1970s,
They're like, he's 32, huh?
Yeah, exactly. It's perfect.
Or
Or
no,
32-year-old play a
yeah.
teenager.
Or the opposite, be like, he's actually 13.
Yeah. You just
But-
have him chain smoking packs of cigarettes every day.
I do think, again, because they took so much inspiration from the movies in this era, the script is reflective of that. Like you said, there's a scene kind of where they're talking about who told you that. He's like, my shrink, and it's kind of you already get the kind of vibe that this is when having certain type of mental issues would be kind of looked down upon.
Yes.
And that ends up playing like a very heavy role, and all of these very interpersonal connections between people who don't think they have anything in common end up really shining. And then you have, which I think various stories here of grief. And I think the one that kind of overlays the whole thing, right? It's like Mary Lamb and her son, and I do think in another movie you might end up kind of feeling like, what is the purpose of having that? But then when you have three characters who end up, you know, especially when you think about like what it would be like to be black at this time, it's like you have all of those things on top. So it's a collection of different types of struggles that end up making you feel like these three think they have nothing in common, and then you end up to find out, oh, like, you know, like a great movie's made that these three can find comfort in each other.
Yeah, for real. You know, they should have called this movie Triangle of Sadness.
Yeah, seriously.
Let's cut to the synopsis really quick. I'll just pull it up on Letterboxd. A curmudgeonly instructor at a New England prep school is forced to remain on campus during Christmas break to babysit a handful of students with nowhere to go. Eventually, he forms an unlikely bond with one of them, a damaged, brainy troublemaker, and with the school's head cook, who has just lost a son in Vietnam. So these are our three main leads, Paul Giamatti, Dominic Sessa, and Divine Randolph. It's like you said, having these three people, this teacher, this cook, and this student, they form the triangle of sadness in this movie. They all have different things going on in their personal lives. It all has to do with loss, really, at the end of the day. They've all kind of suffered these big changes in their life, or their life maybe not going the way they thought it would, which is also, like you said, this is a heavy theme in all of Wes Anderson's movies as well. So this is just a little pocket that we've been in for the past few months on this podcast, watching movies like this. So this was just a welcome addition, honestly. Like, I felt like I knew exactly what I was getting the second the movie started, because I'm like, okay, I've been in this pocket and I've really been enjoying it. So it was great.
It was a sidebar thing that I saw before I got here that is kind of regarding these type of movies, and you kind of brought him up, so I just remembered right now, was Matt Damon talking about like why movies like Good Will Hunting can't get made anymore. And he was kind of, I don't know if that
Matt Damon.
And he was just saying like distribution, because this actually came from a video that I was watching about Oppenheimer, about Nolan always pushing pushing for physical media. And so they were talking about like the absence of physical media sales and what that does to production of movies. And there's a insert from Matt Damon talking about there's this movie that he did get made, I believe, and he was just talking about how hard it was to pick up distribution rights for it, because they're like, as a producer, you're like, if this movie costs, you know, 10 million to make, I have to make 25 million to put it, like, I have to spend 25 million to produce it, and so then I have to split that with the movie theater. He's like, so it has to make 50 million for me to even make a profit. But then to pay you or whatever it was, like, it actually has to make 100 million. And be like, and then when you're talking about a movie that has to do with like very subject matter that's very personal, people aren't, it's not the movies. It's unrealistic. It's a very high risk to take.
Yeah.
So they're not willing to be like, I'm not going to do all of this for this movie. But before, they're like, they were just making movies like this. And then, Christopher Nolan brought up, he's like, not everybody has A24's distribution, like where they're just like, oh, here you go. Like, they're the only ones putting out these movies. They're like, because they're willing to take those hits. Like, all of these big, they're not. And it kind of made me,
bottom line, they got to worry about the profits.
Yeah, and
what will the shareholders think if the Holdovers doesn't make any money?
And it kind of just made me realize, because Nolan was saying at the same time that, like, he's like, when Memento came out, he's like, it hasn't changed much. Like, when I had Memento, people were saying the same thing, like, they don't want to distribute this movie because they have to make this much on this movie. He's like, so that hasn't changed. Just the fact that now, because there is no other sales, like physical media sales, there is no of those small movies anymore. And I just brought it up because, Good Will Hunting is, regarded as a classic.
You know how many people have that movie on DVD?
Yeah. And
or VHS, or it's just sitting in someone's grandma's closet or whatever right now.
And that's like goes back to owning a movie that you feel is so personal to you. And I feel like The Holdovers is something like that. That it's
Are you gonna get The Holdovers 4K Steelbook?
Probably won't even have one. That's the reality.
Yeah.
And like, I'm gonna have to wait for Criterion to pick this up.
Hopefully they do it right away. And like, it's a sad fate for this movie because it's already being tossed to the streaming wolves, right? I never have really looked into it too much. Like, how does it work? Like, I know The Northman made a profit because of streaming. Like, once it hit streaming, it became like one of the top streaming hits of the year. And it was constantly being shown to me on Amazon, like, rent this now, whatever. But the physical media thing always does suck because that is how so many movies made their money back, and why certain directors were able to make more movies was because they knew they were going to get it back on DVD sales.
Yeah, I mean, it's because Nolan is one of the proponents to that. He's like The Dark Knight is probably the most owned movie.
Probably.
Like, yeah, like it's like, and then that was
it's the
something
messy jersey of DVDs.
he put in his deal, like about like making sure like this is gonna be shot on IMAX and it's gonna be shown as such on the copies. Doesn't matter which, and like that's gonna be a problem. Like, don't care, and he got it done. And look, it's it's true. Like I don't have one, but I might be the only person that doesn't have one. You know what I mean? A physical copy of The Dark Knight.
I know quite a few people who own The Dark Knight on Blu-ray or DVD, whatever.
And it is to me just because of what I told you, but I don't think it's ever gonna be. I can't find this movie.
Dude, speaking of physical media, this is a great little drop right here because Guillermo del Toro dropped a fucking gem in the middle of the week about I'm not a collector of DVDs. I'm a custodian of these films,
Yeah, it's
right?
true.
So
I have
that's the
physical
new thing you gotta start
responsibility.
telling people. I'm the goated copper, right? You can't stop me from buying DVDs. I just will not.
Saving culture.
Yeah, saving the culture, man. I gotta pass this on one day.
Come on, man.
Each DVD collection is its own library of Alexandria.
It's true.
It's true. Yeah, when I die, I'm gonna put it in my will to pirate all these movies and put them online, right?
But
My server will live forever even after I die.
exactly. And I mean, but that obviously was a side tangent, but it does feel like the Holdovers is something like that for me. After watching it in the theaters twice, that's why I'm so excited to watch it again. I don't know how many other times I will be able to see. It'll be on streaming, but then what if after the year they're like, all right, we don't need it anymore. We need a tax write-off.
But we all know how you are. I'm sure you'll have unlimited access to this movie.
True.
Back to the movie itself, though, because we need to talk about these three characters a bit more and their performances. They're all wonderful. I don't know if this will get any kind of Oscar buzz. Not that matters or anything, but it's a movie where I think the three performances are all equally as strong as one another. I don't think there's any weak links here. We talked about, like, in Killers of the Flower Moon, how Lily Gladstone and Robert De Niro are like the really heavy hitters in that movie. And I mean, honestly, the more time that's passed, I've seen a few more people now talk about Leonardo DiCaprio actually being the weak link of the movie. This movie, though, doesn't have that.
Yeah.
All of them are firing. All of them have equal, I don't know about equal screen time, but they are equally bringing their own levels of grief and baggage and personal tragedy to this story. And they each have time to let it go, process it, and, kind of have one another. And some gripes I've been seeing about this movie is that it's cheesy, it's cliche, it's too sincere. It's sincere to the point of being like mocking the idea of sincerity. And I don't know. I don't feel that way, but maybe I'm just I'm a sincere douchebag who fucking is too kind-hearted and likes seeing nice things in movies. But do you have anything to say about this? I mean, have you been looking at this at all? I've seen a lot of reviews in this movie that are like, this movie fucking sucks. And I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah, no, I don't think I've seen much of that, honestly. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. It for sure exists, but for the most part, everybody that I know that's seen it, that I've read or talked to, really likes it. I do think it's a type of movie, like I said, that maybe people don't like these type of movies. So if you're gonna watch it, I don't know what really. It's kind of when we talked about Everything Everywhere All at Once. They're like, oh, it's a good feel story, and for some people that's bad because it's kind of. But I don't like cheesy. I don't know in terms of what when it is like you hear Alexander Payne talking about like his intention with this is to kind of show the sadness, and I'm like, so I don't really know what's cheesy about
the Paul
sadness.
Giamatti character is where they kind of like, what is this? Like they think the performance is performative and over the top, and he's a cringe lord, and he is. But I thought that was all kind of, I don't know if it was mocking the character, but it was definitely showing like. When I'm watching this movie and he's trying to be a man of the people and he's bringing up the Roman Empire to two fucking guys who are drinking in the bar. Yeah, in real life, I don't think a guy like that is going to get much love. They're going to go, oh, God, this fucking guy,
Yeah, but
and I do think maybe for some people that was the whole movie. It was like, oh, this fucking guy, you know?
Yeah, it's true because I mean, that's what kind of we're talking about though.
He's
That's what
unlikable. That is one of his main. That was one of Alexander Payne's main missions in this movie, was to make him unlikable for like the first third of it at least, and he was.
Exactly, especially because again,
But that
pulling
worked for me.
from the movies from the 1970s and characterizations that are true, people were really obsessed with, and still are, with history. A history teacher is gonna be that annoying. You know what I mean? I don't really see that really coming into, because we've had teachers outside of school. You see them and they're still the same nerds. You know, so yeah, sure. I mean, I do think that could be a gripe, but again, I think if that's the director's intention, I just be like, it's not the type of movie that you like. Then, you know, same way with like Rushmore, be like, oh, the kid is so, you know, unlikable. Be like, but that's kind of the point.
I'm looking at some of the. Well, you always see these in movies where they use the like, I forget what they call it exactly, but like the taglines. I think it's like modern masterpiece.
Oh yeah,
The feel good coming of age story. You know, but I'm looking at the bad ones here. It's like pile of cliches, flat, phony, painfully diagrammatic, grammatic movie masquerading as a compassionate, humane one. So I'm like, sheesh! I didn't realize that this movie could be so like appalling and offensive to some people.
Yeah, I would say that
These are actual critics too. These are not like letterboxd reviews.
defense. I would say though too is they didn't seem like in any movie in the minority, like a vast minority too.
Yeah,
so.
no, not to try to stir up any controversy, because I do feel the complete opposite of them, but I do think it was it's quite interesting to see such a strong point of view about this movie. Honestly, I don't think it really warrants that kind of criticism, to be honest. Maybe it's one of those movies where like, damn, this is what y'all are dick writing, and like that's why they're going so hard on the negative review. But it's kind of an overwhelming success at the moment, right? Like word of mouth wise, I do think every week it's getting more and more popular. So
It does seem to be also, reading the tagline, there's only 3 movies that have made more than, I think, like 25 million that aren't tied into anything, and it's one of the 3. So that's why I said, like, it does seem like they'd be in the underwhelming minority here. I do think it's going to get award buzz. Whether it'll win, that's hard, but I do think it'll be
pretty
there.
wide open race at the moment, because Dune was gonna probably compete with Oppenheimer, so I think Oppenheimer's gonna get like all the director awards. Cillian Murphy will probably win, but then for everything else, it's kind of I don't know. I think there's a lot of chances here for quite a few different movies to get like a grip of nominations, and I think if it was Dune and Oppenheimer, it would just be the Dune versus Oppenheimer Oscars, to be honest.
Yeah,
Because Dune swept last time.
I do think Oppenheimer is the front runner. I do think they're going to probably take score.
For Best Picture, they're definitely going to give it to Oppenheimer. Or they should. Unless
Yeah.
we get this year's Coda. What if The Holdovers is seen as this year's Coda?
That's what I'm saying. Like, it could... I could see... It depends, man. I could see, based on what I've seen with the Holdovers, it having more of a race in there. I could see Paul Giamatti maybe winning, but then, you know, Oppenheimer
over Cillian
winning.
Murphy, though, right?
Yeah, it depends, man. You know how sometimes... Yeah, I didn't expect Coda to win. Coda, I haven't seen it, but... Sometimes I guess it depends who the judges are. They're more down with the feel good stories as well, you know, as over the
Coda
over
is
sci-fi.
Coda, well, in terms of quality, is vastly different from the Holdovers. It's not that different of a movie, you know. It's like personal drama, a teacher who's pushing a troubled student to become greater than they are seeing themselves, you know.
Yeah, so you know,
it's like it's not that different.
It's just there's like more of a, because you know Coda did probably have like with the sign language, right?
I like both of them, so I'm not one to try to argue either of these movies. So
yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if it does. I could see it having stronger or supporting actor actress that could take one of those.
Napoleon sweep. I need Napoleon sweep.
Dang.
This is the worst timeline for everybody involved.
Yeah, Napoleon. And
characters of the 3, who is your favorite character in this movie? Because this
Dominic
is what this movie's about.
Dominic Sessa's
Dominic
performance.
Sessa. I'll probably go Paul Giamatti.
They're just so. I mean, it's between them two for real, and I do think the thing we haven't touched about is how just hilarious this movie is.
Yeah, I will say for Divine Randolph, not to discredit her in any way, but I do think the writing, while it's a very strong personal story about overcoming the sadness of losing her son and like the life that she had before him and what she's holding on to by still being at this academy, they don't really give her as much range as they do the other two characters, right? Like
Yeah, I
you
can
could
see
see a
that.
total range of who these people are from the funniest moments to the saddest moments. And I kind of want to get into spoilers a bit because to really talk about these characters, we should describe these personal tragedies, don't you think?
Yeah.
So who do you want to start with then?
We could start with Paul Giamatti.
Okay, so he's the teacher at this Barton Academy, right? Prep school for boys, I believe. I didn't see one. I didn't see no girlies.
No,
right?
no
Yeah, I don't think it
girlies.
was a school for girls at all. But he's like their pretentious douchebag history teacher who's constantly quoting Latin and
Hard ass.
undermining the students. Total hard ass, giving everybody F's and D's.
No one likes him.
right? Nobody likes him. Why would you? He smells like fish. He has a glass eye. Worst guy ever. And yeah, he's secretly an alcoholic, kind of openly as well, depending on who he's around, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of regret in his life, and he's babysitting these students this year, and they all get left behind except for one, which brings us to Dominic Sessa playing the character Angus Tully. Very cool movie name.
Very
Love
cool.
that.
That's a Wes Anderson ass name.
Yeah, that's true, right? That is definitely a Wes Anderson name. What was his name? Max Fisher? Max
Yeah.
Fisher versus Angus Tully.
I like that.
Yeah, that would be pretty good.
Give us what's the YouTube when they put them in fight?
Oh, the death battle?
Give us
Yeah,
the death battle.
for sure. 100K views. Easy. This character, though, Angus Tully, dad's not in the picture. Mom's remarried. Way too smart for his own good. Troubled student, but very good, right? Like in terms of grades and stuff like that. Just one of these guys. He's like a perfect movie kid. You know what I mean?
Tragedy.
Where it's like, I don't know if people like this even really exist like that often, but in movies, these guys are like a dime a dozen. He's Will Hunting, he's Max Fisher, but the difference here is Dominic Sessa's performance is wonderful, and I can't believe this is his first time. You would think he'd be in something else at least, where he kind of, got his numbers up. But dude, this is one to watch. If this is his first performance, put him in the next Christopher Nolan movie or Denis Villeneuve movie or something like that.
I believe there might be some theater training there.
Okay,
Yeah. So, that always tends to be something that
he's
a lot
properly
of
trained. Huh?
everybody else doesn't seem to have as much anymore. So that might be it. But yeah, I do think as for a first performance, it's really, that might be one hard to top. But
What about Addison Rae in Thanksgiving?
ooh,
Yeah.
yeah, for this year, I do think he would take the cake for me in terms of best performance. And the reason I can side with like which one's more impressive is Paul Giamatti being so unlikable, but then also having all of those line reads about just the geeky Roman stuff is kind of like also hard to just ask of any actor, I think, to really act like be able to portray that all of that stuff so passionately.
They love this stuff. This is like actor catnip. Roles like this, they could chew the scenery, say a bunch of words that nobody ever says in real life. Bring up ancient history that nobody would fucking remember, even you. Like, you're the only person who remembers this, like, off the top of their head, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, actors love this kind of bullshit. I don't mean it in a bad way, but, this is like a yum.
Because you're this
nom,
is like,
nom, 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 in the words of Napoleon.
Exactly. And like you're testing them to their what would be seen as like very traditional limits or things to be.
Acting.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get to do that. Paul Giamatti's character, let's talk about him, because I think that the reason I like him the most too is because it's almost like he's the older version of Angus from the future.
Yeah.
It's like he's the ghost of Christmas future or past or whatever coming back to town. I'm like, bro, if you keep on being like this, you're going to end up just like me. It's like, this is pretty awful existence, gotta say. Pretty L life. To be Paul Giamatti in this movie would be probably one of the worst things that could happen to you.
True that.
I would think of half the time I was thinking of the Matthew McConaughey clip from True Detective where he's like, given the first opportunity, you should kill yourself. Oh man, like, I don't know, bro. Maybe you should just end it. This is not the quality of life that anybody should be having, dude. Stuck in this prep school, kicked out of Harvard, and I wanted to bring this up because it's somewhat of a spoiler. Well, it's not really. I will say I watched his interview with Seth Meyers, and the clip they use of the movie to show the audience is the one where he's talking about getting kicked out of Harvard. So I think I got a free pass there on that one. But kicked out of Harvard. The story is only from one side. Do you think he actually plagiarized this kid's writing and then hit him with the car out of vengeance? I don't think it's 100%, but I do think that little nugget right there is like, oh look, he is like Angus, like that, because that's something I could see the other character doing.
I don't think he was the one that cheated, but I don't think he also hit him with the car. I just think he got kicked out because he cheated. There's no reason to.
So you think he's lying about the part where he's like, oh, I hit him with my car?
And I hit him with the car, yeah.
Why do you think he's lying though? What, just something about it?
It's just like the same way that there's no way, because he says about like what I think of my life is for me, and I don't need to give anybody the validation to know those things, is that there is no way to check if that's the reason he actually got kicked out. But to me, I'm like, you were just kicked out in college. You get kicked out for plagiarism, so why would it need to be an additional? And you hit him with the, it's not like you get like, sure, if you're a really good student, they might give you like a leeway where you're on suspension or something, but for the most part, an institution like that, you'll get kicked out just
Instantly,
for that,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I kind of want to believe it just because the two characters are so similar to each other, and it is kind of something that endears him to Angus. He's like, oh, it's kind of badass, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Okay, he's not just a total schmuck. Like, this guy has some fight in him. But this tanked his career. That's why he's at this academy. So for him, I think that his character is really dealing with the loss of opportunity. You know what I mean? Like the never coming to grips with the life that he got taken away from him, and that's why he's this way to all these students, because he's rough on these guys. Like, I know they're spoiled rich kid daddy's boys, but it's like, dude, he's being like really rough on them, like to the point of like he's just a dick to them. Like, yeah, they're not smart or whatever, they're just there because they're rich kids, but he's also just like extremely insulting to every single one of them.
Yeah, he don't care about the holidays, and his insults are so they're so smart that they're so snarky, right?
Yeah.
They're like
It's going over everyone's head.
They
No one
come
knows
with such bullets, though. Where
He's
you're
like, oh, I can tell I'm being insulted, but I don't even know what you said.
Exactly.
So,
but it's such, you know, it's not just you're dumb. Such intent and thought behind it that he's like, everybody is a different type of insult. You know, a barbarian or whatever,
Yeah.
a baboon or all of these different things.
I don't know. I'm like, just what a dick. I'm not surprised nobody likes him. And I mean, I don't think by the end he becomes like this more endearing character to everyone.
No.
He just becomes, his personal mission is to save this kid.
I also do think, and again, kind of going back to what he says, is that he just lets Angus see the real him.
Mm-hmm.
And like he felt that it was okay to show him that. Like, he had the privilege to see that because Paul Giamatti saw so much of himself in him. And it ended up becoming, again, just like the Grinch, right? He has heart for somebody.
Just like the Grinch. Another Christmas classic.
Yeah, because at the end, I think, like I said, kind of in the beginning of the episode, it is sad to see that he got kicked out because of him, and he told him, you're going to get me kicked out. But it's for a good reason. But then you're like, the life this guy has, what is he really going to go do after this? So it does seem like the small thing that he did have now also got taken from him. Yeah. And it wasn't really his fault.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we should probably bring this up too, is like there is a point after all of the other holdovers have been taken away, and Angus is the only one left with the professor and the cook. They decide to take a road trip to Boston, which is just down the road, because they're in New England. I guess, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure on the geometry of it, but or the geography of it, but you know, let's just say they're down the road from Boston because they go by car. So these characters are. It becomes a bit of a road movie too, which is also interesting. It's not really an adventure, but they're on the road, they're connecting. This is where the bonding really starts to happen, and all these characters are kind of just coming to grips, and we learn more about each one of them. Angus's father is not actually dead, as it's implied in the beginning. He is in a mental institution, and the reason that Angus is the way he is because he has this past with his father being mentally unstable, his mother having a new family, him having his own mental issues. Like you said, he goes to the therapist. He has the shrink. He's on pills. We see that Paul Giamatti's on these same pills, right? So it's like that's another thing where I'm like, oh look, these characters are two different ages, but the same guy. You know what I mean? Like the 17-year-old and this like 60-year-old man are basically the same dude, and they're both unlikable, and that's why they don't like each other. But the cook as well, she's comes to grips with it more and more, like the loss of her son, and by the time she gets to her destination on this road trip, she's finally ready to let that go when she sees her sister, because her sister is having a baby. And the cycle of life where there's loss, there's always a new life. And we see this nice touching moment where she gives her son's baby clothes to her future nephew, and it's kind of it's a touching moment. I when I see stuff like that, I'm like, God damn, a pile of cliches. Are you that heartless?
Pile of cliches. Yeah, exactly.
I'm just like, damn, dude. Are we really this insincere as a society where we see stuff like that and you're like, oh, here comes the waterworks, the world's smallest violin, right?
Yeah, because I did see, like, for example, Mary's character, like you did. I ended up seeing it as a nitpick to be like she's one tone, because I do think in terms of the time frame of this and just emotionally, I do think a mother, when they lose a child, is like they spend years in that realm. You know what I mean? So it's not like there's these moments of positivity, but it does live in her that she's always in the last place she was with them. So I don't think while maybe one noted, I do think it's kind of nitpicking just because
it's the heaviest note that could be on somebody
exactly
of their life is like the loss
as a mother,
of their
right?
Child. Yeah.
I can. You could disagree with that, but I could buy that.
Jokes?
Yeah, but I will never know that, but I could buy that. You know what I mean? And then, like you said, though, but I did feel like at the end, when she puts his shoes in her box, and even at the end when she's saying bye to Paul Giamatti, like she just seemed very cheerful. Like, now I have another goal. Like now I'm saving up for her kid, and that does become very warming because this lady lost her son. All of this positivity maybe, and then now she rose from it and chose like, now I'm gonna do it for this, and I think that's very real and compelling. And yeah, that's why I was like, but I could see like what you said though, that maybe somebody who'd say like it's just very cliche could be like, oh, she lost a child and then guess she got over it. Be like, well, it's kind of you kind of either really never do, you never do, like, let's be honest, but it's like, life continues.
Time is a band-aid that heals all wounds. That was the first lie she told me.
Right? Exactly. But it's that's why to me it is a nitpick, because like I do think she puts on a really great performance, especially when they go to the Christmas party, where Angus also finds some relief by being with the girl. I found that party just kind of really, like, for me, where I felt like the film really showed itself off, because all three of them get their griefs off at a party that's like a neutral space. We get all of the same things we get in these halls of the school, but we get it at a party, and it kind of even really shows like how isolating they are even amongst the crowd.
Yeah, that's a good point right there. I really like that party scene because it also shows you that these people are not just in this frame of mind because they're stuck with each other. It is even around everybody else. So it's like you get to actually see them not in their, like, the school's almost like this dollhouse and they're the toys inside, but when they go out into the real world and you get to see how they actually are around other people, you can see the sadness because of how other people are reacting to them, like when Paul Giamatti gets his heart crushed because the teacher he has a crush on, her boyfriend walks in. You're just like, oh my damn, God. Poor fish boy.
He thought, all of us thought, like, bro, like, why are you scared of her? Like, go, and then look. But the only one I did feel there is like Angus. was finally given something as the kid in this story was finally given what I think, us being that age not that long ago was like, yes, there's a girl here. And she's pretty cute.
I know when he walked in and he saw the girl, I was like, nice.
It's
Good
same
for you,
age.
boy. Good for you, boy.
And they're already getting set up by the parents, right? You're like,
Yeah.
they're cool with it.
Nice. It's the 70s. He met a girl. Get married.
Yeah, exactly. So he's the only one that I feel, but at the end, because he gets that high, him leaving the party gets kind of affected the most, because
he's
that's
so
where
sad. Too. He's like, this is the one good night I've had in like 3 weeks. Are you fucking serious? We have to deal with all this bullshit.
We have to come back. He's like, yeah, he lost your kid, so let's make fine. She's okay. Let's make sure she's okay, and let's come back.
Oh man,
he's like, I'm trying to get some cheeks.
Yeah, for real. It's like, god damn, man, fucking cock blocks. Paul Giamatti, back to him a little bit. We should probably start wrapping this up soon. He loses his job because of this. But much like the Wes Anderson movies and we talked about, I think there's always the fresh restart at the end. And I think that Paul Giamatti's character gets this. They all get a new outlook on life, but he's really the one who actually gets to leave the school and go out and finally have a life. One of the funniest scenes in the movie to me, or like lines of dialogue, is when he talks about he wanted to write a monograph, which is like sort of like a book. And she's like, I know what a monograph is. And she's like, damn, you can't even dream a whole dream and say you want to write a book?
Just a monograph. Yeah, that was
so
real
as fuck, right?
Why not a book? That was I don't know if I have it in me.
Yeah.
You can't even dream a full dream.
That might be my favorite line in any movie this year. You can't even dream a full dream. That's so good.
Real.
Yeah. I know. I put that up above the walls or something. If I ever have my own academy, I'm going to put that dream a whole dream, please. But he finally gets to go off on his own, and I guess he's going to travel the world, write some books or some monographs, I guess. And I find it a satisfying ending for everyone involved. It's like the kid has a new outlook on life. Hopefully, this is something that changed him. Like you said, the cook finally has the acceptance of losing her son and like a new mission in life going forward to provide for her nephew. And Giamatti gets to travel the world.
Who might be like, they might even name the kid after her son.
Yeah,
the middle name. Yeah. If it's a boy.
50-50.
But so again, big cliches, I guess, at the holidays. But I did feel like after the holidays, after the saddest, because it ended up being that high in a movie where, because it's so warm, because it's the holidays, it's juxtaposed by the sadness, again, coziness in that type of frame. But after the holidays come through, it does seem like, everybody comes back to reality, and similar to them, they come back to, okay, well, I had my time to really grieve, and now, because they're real people and real people do this, you have to keep going. And what did I learn from this, and I did feel like some of their changes are more dramatic than some, like, the cook, again, just within her time of reflecting with them, was able to get through the loss and going to go visit. She didn't even know if she was sure she wanted to go visit her sister in the beginning. And then because they're going on the road trip, like, I'm going to need you to drop me off. And so it's almost, again, their whole, or Paul Giamatti's change of character, wanting to do this of taking the kid to Boston, really helped both of them come through to their grievances of, accepting, maybe not accepting her Angus's father's, like how he is, but at least you get another chance. And I do think in terms of movie, you might think like, and that's where it turned around for him, because like finally a teacher understood me, saw me, but that's for another, whatever, if you want to think of that. But I think those are realistic depiction. So maybe it's cliche, but
you know what, I'll say this, maybe it's picking a bias for quote unquote real movies, but how many movies that are mainstream and popular are just regurgitated bullshit? Literally Scream 6, Creed 7, whatever the fuck, and those never get the gripes of being like, oh, they're cliche and they're this, they're that. But when a movie like The Holdovers, just because it smells like another movie, oh, well, you're gonna hate on the original concept just because it's like something else versus dick riding Creed 8, you know what I mean? Because it's the formula, it works. Like, formulas should be okay for all movies, not just superhero movie bullshit or John Wick or whatever the fuck, where it's the same movie every single time with a little different set dressing.
I mean, especially when we've talked
It's
about,
so unfair. It's low-hanging fruit for to make fun of an original movie for being similar to another movie.
it just, that ends up really I don't know if that really end up being part of a critique or more just like a, kind of like we talked about, when you see a trailer, if you don't see the trailer, you read the synopsis what the movie's about. Does it interest you or not? And it does seem like sometimes the person might already go in there being like, trying to get this movie to convince them that they should like this. And it's kind of like, well, if you're looking for things like to be like, this is so like, you know, the characters were well written, they're just copies of X, Y, and Z. Like, well, I could tell you that if you ask the director of whatever you're asking, that's a copy of some book, and that book is a copy of a story that they heard verbal. You know what I mean?
Okay, well,
So
you
like,
said this director Hal Ashby is the one who's like a heavy inspiration for this type of movie, right? The movie he's most known for is Harold and Maude, which is I'm pretty sure you know what that movie is, right?
yeah.
So Harold and Maude, and then what? You get Good Will Hunting and Dead Poets Society, and then you get this movie, right? So it's like movies are a lineage of like this movie is a branch, and here's all the leaves of other movies that are like it. And I don't understand why for an original movie that gets grief when, you know, the highly controversial Scream 7 that may or may not come out. Be like, why does that movie get any kind of pass? You know, and like I enjoyed Scream 6 quite a bit, but I'm just saying, I don't walk into a Scream movie like, oh, it's so unoriginal, or The Holdovers, like, oh, it's so unoriginal because they're like other movies. Like, dude, every movie's kind of like another movie.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about it's either Jaws or Die Hard, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's my rant. Oh, my rant on that. Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. This. I guess we were pretty ready to wrap it up. If there's anything else I had to say about this movie, it's just at the end. Like I said, I've watched this movie twice. I can't wait to watch it again. It's on streaming. Probably watch it at least twice during the actual Christmas holiday. Yeah. I can safely say it's probably one of my favorite movies that I've seen since the podcast started.
Me every week when we see a movie that we're gonna do an episode on.
Yeah. Hey, it's like yeah, like this one, I don't think if Oppenheimer didn't exist, I do think this would be my favorite movie of the year. But
new personality dropped on Paul Giamatti and the Holdovers.
Exactly.
It was weird when you walked in smoking a pipe and shining your glass eye. Huh?
That's something that I forgot that we wanted to bring up. Our viewing of the person, somebody walked in with uniform.
Oh, the whole, yeah. The old guy wearing a fedora. Yeah, and at the end of the movie, when he takes the fall for the kid, the wife should, wow.
They were compelled, brother.
So I brought that up to you. I was like, see, they say people don't like movies like this anymore, but this regular ass couple, just two old people, I guess it isn't a cliche ending or whatever, but it's like when he takes the fall for the kid, it worked every time. It works every time.
Hey man, they didn't seem to expect it. They didn't seem to expect it.
You can see it a mile away, you know? She was still, oh man. Oh, they caught her off guard. And I was like, that is the magic of the movies right there.
Yeah, be like, as somebody, you watch somebody movies and you know what's set up to be. That's like where we could address things like, this is a cliche. Like you said, like that. I didn't know how it would end. Maybe like, it could have ended like subverting your expectations, be like, and their life was worse. But I was like, that's not what the movie. The movie's not giving me that.
Went to jail for kidnapping.
Yeah, exactly. But I like at that moment came on that movie when the tension and he's looking, it was like, explain what happened. He's gonna take the fall for it. You think he's gonna let the kid be like, nah, that kid's a piece of shit.
Have some movie literacy, right?
That's
like
not the compelling.
You've seen other movies. Of course, he's gonna take the fall.
Brother,
for the kid.
this is where the speech is gonna go off, where he lets the parents know they're shitty, and this is where the performance of like he won the Oscar is gonna come. What are you talking about?
That's what I'm like, dude. Okay, not to be like a movie snob or anything, but it's like, dude, have you ever seen a movie? Like, do you know how movies work? Like, what did you think was gonna happen?
Like, this is the part where in Family Guy they make the spoof when Peter goes off on Lewis. Yeah, I am dumb, and he starts doing like the Oscar speech. He's like, but at least
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I like me. My family likes me.
Exactly. Be like at the end, that's exactly where you get that speech.
Yeah,
and it's like, bro, it's so set up. It's been on a track the whole game, the whole movie.
Hey, if you're looking for a movie to watch tonight on Christmas or on Thanksgiving, you should go check out this movie before it's in the digital world. And if you can't watch this, you should watch Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, because that's a Thanksgiving classic, and that's where that speech comes from.
Yeah, since you brought it up,
you should check that one out. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody, if you're into that sort of thing. If you're not, happy Opsgiving,
Racksgiving,
right? yeah, man, check out the Holdovers. We'll be back next week for the 99th episode of the podcast. The 100th one is coming soon. Got some interesting things planned. Yeah. Bye-bye, everybody.
See
Happy
ya.
holidays.